Okay, perfect. Good morning, everybody. First, I would like to thank all the organizers and the sponsors, and especially Laurence Belaïch for the invitation to be here this morning. I will try to convince you that doing NMR in patients who have a transient neurological deficit is not a waste of imaging resources. Well, I will start with a few QCM, I don't know how you say that in English, and we will correct them in the end of this talk. So the first one is, when you face a patient with a TIA or transient neurological symptoms, what is the optimal imaging workup? The first answer is you do nothing, since the deficit is transient, so the imaging will be normal. B, you use a non-enhanced brain CT. C, you use a brain CT plus CTA to image the head and neck arteries. The D is you use a brain MRI, and E, you may add imaging of the head and neck arteries. Second exercise, this imaging workup, if it's needed, should be done as soon as possible if the deficit is recent, immediately after the EEG. It should be done to rule out an intracranial hemorrhage, which occurs in up to 1/4 of patients. D, to search for ischemic lesions, and E, to search for arterial stenosis. If you know to answer all these questions, you might go and have a coffee. The last exercise is bright lesion on diffusion-weighted imaging in patients with transient neurological deficit are small, are often multiple, are likely correspond to acute ischemia. The frequency decreases with the duration of symptoms. And E, they are associated with a higher risk of recurrent stroke. So we will correct all this in the end of my talk. So let's first start with the definition of TIA. We have all learned the old definition, or most of us, which was a TIA corresponded to any focal cerebral ischemic event with symptoms lasting less than 24 hours. I think you do remember this definition. It was the timing of 24 hours made no sense, so it was put back to 1 hour, from 24 hours to 1 hour limitation. And in the end, the 1 hour limitation didn't mean much, because it just meant that it was a short duration deficit. So now in the new definition, there is no limit of time, and the new definition includes imaging, and it is, we will read it together, a transient episode of neurological dysfunction caused by focal ischemia without acute infarction on brain imaging. That means that you can't give a name to a disease if you don't do brain imaging. The second point is that the diagnosis of TIA is clinically very difficult, because the patient has no symptoms. Typically the deficit is very short, so he has no symptoms, so the diagnosis is retrospective, and very often the patient forgot half of the symptoms, so the concordance between observers is quite low. The goal of imaging in patients suspected of TIA is triple. First, it's a diagnostic purpose. We will want to rule out an hematoma, and I must tell you right away that this is exceptional. It's not in 1/4 of patients. We want to confirm the vascular origin of symptoms. The second point is to find a cause to this deficit, and the last point, we want some prognostic information, and try to identify patients that are very high risk of stroke recurrency in order to put them in a hospital bed, do the etiological workup, and treat them if there is something to treat. Well, just to be clear, after presenting you the definition of TIA, if I use the word TIA in this talk, I mean a transient deficit that is quickly resolutive, irrespective of what we see on brain CT or on brain MR. I hope you're not lost. Okay, so when we face a patient with a transient neurological symptom of sudden onset, what should we do if we decide to perform an MR? Here is the cocktail of sequence we do use in the Santen Hospital. We first do a T2 star weighted imaging, about 1 minute, a FLAIR sequence, a high resolution diffusion weighted imaging. I will explain you why. We had an MR, a TOF MR of the Willis circle, and we finished the examination with imaging of the head and neck. We could do that using a CT scan for the head and neck, but as the patient is laying still in the MR, it's quicker to do everything in the same time. Let's start with this first example. A patient with cerebellar sign, ataxia, and weakness of the forelimbs. Do you see the, yes, of the forelimb? The duration of symptoms is less than 2 hours. And here on the diffusion, you may spot a dark lesion here. It's slightly bright on FLAIR. And what you have to do is do a T2 star weighted sequence and look at it to be able to not to miss a brain hematoma. And if we look at this publication by the British, was done in England, we can see that they state that the key sequence needed to diagnose hemorrhage is omitted in more than half of the center, reducing the value of MR. So I advise you to include a T2 star weighted sequence to rule out some exceptional cases of hematoma that are revealed by a transient deficit. Okay, if it's not an hematoma, what information can we gather? The first one, for example here, duration 16 minutes, the MRI is performed 24 hours after the onset of symptoms. Of course, the patient is no longer symptomatic. On FLAIR you see a widespread lesion of both centrum, centrum semi-ovale, and on diffusion weighted imaging you will see exactly what you observe in patients with permanent deficit, except the lesions are quite small, they are bright on diffusion, and typically the ADC is decreased. This type of pattern that you will find in about 40% of patients with transient neurological symptoms. The lesions you will search for, they are small in size. Here is another example of small lesions on both hemispheres. They are often multiple in half of the case, and typically they are consistent with clinical data. That means they are not exactly located where you expect it when you expect to find them, but they are in the arterial territory that's matching the clinical symptom. Let's say, for example, this patient has got an aphasia and you find lesion in the left MCA territory. When should you expect a positive diffusion imaging? You should expect that when the patient has got motor deficit, when the patient had an aphasia, and also when the deficit lasts quite long. And you can see here on this, it's quite old now, this scheme, but it's still true. You have the percentage of positive diffusion lesion, and here you have the number of hours the deficit lasted, and you can see that in their experience, a third of patients with lesion with deficit that lasted less than an hour have a positive MR, and it raises to 71% when the deficit lasts for more than 12 hours. So if the deficit lasts longer, there is more chance to have a positive diffusion MR. It's not because the deficit is here are two examples of deficit that last more than an hour with positive diffusion MR. Here an example, the duration is 3 hours. Here the duration is 90 minutes, and you see this very acute lesion on the cortex, on the primary motor cortex. And in these two cases on the lower part of the slide, the deficit lasts only 30 minutes, but you still have a positive diffusion weighted MR in both cases. So what's the meaning of having positive diffusion in patients with transient neurological symptoms? The first point is that you're sure that the symptoms are due to a vascular disorder. And the second point is that it corresponds to brain infarctions. And you can see here an example, and we followed a cohort of patients with bright lesion on diffusion, and we found that in almost all cases there is a hole on the follow-up, so the tissue is dead. This voxel corresponds to dead tissue on imaging follow-up. What about the ADC? We have all learned that we should compute the ADC as often as possible. Well, this might not be the case in TIA patients. Typically, this is what you should observe. A bright lesion here, it's slightly bright on flare, and the ADC is slightly decreased. Here it's about 15% as compared to the contralateral side. However, as you may know, and you will observe it if you compute the ADC in real life, the ADC is often normal in very small lesion, because there is a slight motions in between the B0 and the B2000, or small distortion that makes the computation of ADC with errors. And in fact, look at this lesion here. The ADC is strictly normal. So in small lesion, I would advise you not to compute the ADC, or forget the ADC if it's normal, and don't take it into account in your conclusion. When you see a bright lesion here and the patient has got a motor deficit on the left side, it is very likely that the patient has a TIA of vascular origin. If you really want to capture the decrease of ADC, then you will have to use high-resolution diffusion-weighted image with smaller slice section, for example 3 millimeters, and then you will capture more easily the decrease of ADC. Okay. So I've shown you the typical pattern of what you should expect in patients who have a transient deficit of vascular origin. Now the question is, do we have false positive cases that are patients with transient deficit, a bright lesion on diffusion that are not vascular? And I will show you 4 examples. The first one is this one. This is not ischemia. Why this is not ischemia? Because the lesion, I might show you the lesions here, they delineate the motor cortex on both sides. This is very widespread. This is impossible to have an asymptomatic patient with such a widespread lesion, so that can't be vascular, otherwise it will have very severe symptoms. And of course, you might have recognized some post-ictal edema that you may get after status epilepticus. The second type of disease you should know is that in patients with transient global amnesia that are probably not from arterial vascular cause, do have some bright dots in the hippocampus. In the hippocampus, this can be bilateral. You capture these lesions easily if you use 3 Tesla coronal section, small section, high B value, whatever, if you optimize your diffusion weighted sequence. Typically these lesions are located not in any part of the, I don't know how to say that in English, Hammond horn? I'm not sure. Well, in any part of the hippocampus, they are specifically located in this blue area. That means there is little chance that it's arterial, vascular and arterial. And the last point is that it doesn't leave any sequelae. And you see that that's a patient image acutely, bright dots on diffusion, bright on T2, and there is absolutely nothing on follow-up. This is not arterial, and this is a differential diagnosis. This is quite a rare example, but I wanted to mention it to you. A patient that's present typically with, that could be a TIA, 24-year-old female, sudden left hemiparesia, duration 6 hours. And you're facing this bright area on diffusion-weighted imaging 4 hours after the onset of symptoms. The patient is still symptomatic in this case. What do you think? You may want to conclude that this is vascular, this is probably arterial. In fact, during the workup, we got a glycemia that was very low, and we find a pancreatic insulinoma. So that was an hypoglycemia lesion, and this is very tricky to make the diagnosis acutely. But remember that status epilepticus, transient global amnesia, hypoglycemia the three of them can produce hyperintensity on diffusion weighted imaging that are not arterial, ischemic arterial lesions. And the last example is this one, a 70-year-old woman, transient paresthesial of the left upper extremity. On diffusion weighted imaging, you see this poorly delineated bright signal and probably around the motor cortex. What you will do is look at the other sequence, of course, and here you can see that it's probably not in the cortex, but likely in the subarachnoid space, or maybe even a layer of blood along the pial, de Pimer. Je sais pas comment on dit. Help. The P matter. The P matter. Okay, and some of you might have recognized some sequel of bleeding that may be a way to enter into angiopathy amyloid, and that may produce very funny type of symptoms that mimic TIA, and you should know that. And you should also know that you don't only look at diffusion weighted imaging, but you have to look on the other sequence, of course, especially on T2 star weighted sequence. Okay, so we leave the false positive cases. And I told you that when a patient has got a transient deficit, up to 40%, up to 60%, sorry, there is a mistake on my slide, 60% of patients with a probable TIA have normal MR. So we have a problem here. The first point, that's a very important message, is that a normal diffusion does not rule out a transient vascular deficit. First point, if the deficit lasts very long, like 12 hours, 24 hours, there is a very big chance that it's not a vascular lesion, because it should leave a print on diffusion weighted imaging. So that's the first point. The second point is that we may not be very accurate with our diffusion weighted imaging, especially if you use 6 mm slice thickness with voxels that are 3 mm offside. So if you have a gross diffusion lesion, you may not capture everything, and you may have true false negative cases. So can we go any further? Of course you can, but you have to spend more time, the patient has to spend more time in the machine. If you are using a 1.5 Tesla, this is a standard diffusion, 50 seconds, and you see nothing. This is both negative cases. And by simply using more diffusion direction, smaller slice thickness, and a bit more scanning time, you can see the lesions here in the brainstem and here in the left MCA territory. So that's the first point. If you want to capture these lesions, you probably have to optimize your diffusion weighted sequence just to capture everything. If you have an access at 3T MR, then you may use the basic diffusion weighted sequence, and then in some cases you will see nothing. The same thing, if you optimize the sequence, then you will capture some very small dots and manage to make the positive diagnosis of vascular lesions. There is different way of optimizing your sequences. Here is a flare. Here is a standard like 20-second diffusion weighted sequence, B1000, 3 directions. If you increase the number of directions, you will see this thalamic lesion, and also if you increase the value of B, you will see an additional lesion. So that's up to you, but if you increase the value of B, you have to increase the number of acquisition to avoid losing too much signal. And you may have this type of sequence on your machines, and if you do have them, then use them. I don't have any example of stroke the positive diffusion to show you, because we just got them before I left Paris. But these are called focus diffusion, 3 minutes. This is on a 3T machine, and I'm sure we will have a lot more positive lesions if we have this type of resolution on the brainstem and the cerebellum on the cerebellum. Okay, how can we explain? We can explain the fact that we have false negative cases, first because we are not sensitive enough, because the voxels are too big, we don't have enough resolution, but there might be other explanation. The first one is we might do diffusion too early. Look at these examples. 7 hours after symptoms there is nothing, 24 hours after there is a lesion. So that means obviously we arrived too early. Same thing in the second cases, age 5 nothing, age 20 there is a lesion. So you will say, okay, that's good, so I don't have to wake up at night to do that and I can wait for the next day. Well, this is not sure, because there is exactly the opposite that can happen, and I can summarize it by this: capture it or lose it. That means if you arrive too late, you won't see the lesion. Here, 14 hours after after symptom, the diffusion is positive, and 2 days later, it's vanished, it's disappeared. Same thing here. These are very small lesions, 13 hours. There is nothing more on 34 hours after. So altogether, the conclusion of that is we should image patients when they arrive as quickly as possible, but we may miss lesions because we do it too early, but also if you wait, you will miss lesions because you arrive too late. Okay, I've got a few more slices before we correct before I give you the answer of the question I asked you in the beginning, is giving you a few information about the risk of stroke recurrency after a TIA. The risk of stroke recurrency is about 6%. But all patients are not equal. If you want to keep a message on the risk, you can remember that the risk is multiplied by 7 if the patient has a positive diffusion weighted imaging. If you look at this graph here, you will see that the risk is more important if it's a recent TIA as compared to less recent TIA. It's also much higher if the patient has a positive diffusion lesion, we just saw that, and also if there is multiple lesion on diffusion weighted imaging. And the last point is that the risk is even greater if the patient has got large artery atherosclerosis. So we are going to summarize all that in a score that you may or may not use, but I want you to have heard about it, that summarize the risk of stroke recurrency according to all these parameters. Oh, well, no, there is in 2 seconds. Okay, I will use this example to show you how the score works. This is a 75-year-old man, 2 episodes of transient aphasia. The duration is 90 minutes, 1.5 hours. And look at the diffusion. It's a high resolution diffusion. We see a lot of bright dots in the parietal area. If you look at this, this is an ASL, arterial speed labeling without contrast, without gadolinium. You can see that there is a defect in the left MCA territory. There is not much here on the Willis circle arteries. And if you finish the exam by an MR of the cervical, head and neck, you will see a high-grade stenosis here. So this patient has got bright lesion on diffusion, a high-grade stenosis, and probably a hypoperfusion downstream of the stenosis. Here is the score that I was talking to you, and we will apply it to this patient. It's called the ABCD3 imaging score. A for age, B for blood pressure, D for duration, D3 duration, diabetes, and dual TIA, and imaging for imaging data. So this patient is 65 years old. He's got 1 point. He doesn't have any hypertension. He's got a speech language problem. He doesn't have any motor problem. The duration of the deficit is 90 minutes. He has no diabetes, I think. He Yeah, he had a dual TIA. That means he had similar symptoms in the 48 hours before. And as we saw, he's got high-grade stenosis and bright lesion on the DWI. So altogether, he's got a very high score. We consider that above 9 is very high risk of having a recurrent stroke. So of course, this patient has to be operated of his high-grade stenosis to save him from having a recurrent stroke. And also you can notice that there is no longer a hypoperfusion after endarterectomy in this case. One of the last questions is when to perform imaging. So I hope I convinced you that you should do imaging. You should do imaging of the brain, of the head and neck arteries. The recommendation are the following: is you should do it 24 hours after a recent TIA. The recent TIA is defined as less than 72 hours. So people who come to your hospital 6 months after having a sudden neurological deficit, there is probably no need to rush and push him straight away in the MR. The optimal imaging is brain imaging, ideally with MR, and non-invasive imaging of the cervical and intracranial arteries, whatever technique you want to use, whatever is available, or what you deal with better. Of course, one of the important messages, maybe I didn't insist enough, is that the risk of recurrency is a maximum in the first 48 hours, and then it decreases. Remember that it's important in the first week, and after that the risk is quite low. So I think you should be easily answer all these questions. When you face a patient with transient neurological symptoms, what's the optimal imaging workup? And here I expected, of course, the first one is wrong. You saw a lot of patients with bright lesion, although they had no deficit. So the answer I expect is brain MRI plus imaging of the head and neck arteries. This you can do with Doppler or angio-CT or MR, whatever. This imaging workup should be done as soon as possible if the deficit is recent, of course. Immediately after the EEG, there is no need to do an EEG. To rule out an intracranial hemorrhage up to 1/4 of patients, we saw that this is exceptional, but you must still rule it out and be sure it's not an hematoma. You will search for ischemic lesion, and then you will be sure that the deficit is vascular. And of course, you will search for arterial stenosis. This is probably the most important, because this is what we will cure and what will protect the patient from having a recurrent stroke. And the last question is the lesion we see on diffusion. They are small, they are often multiple, they likely correspond to acute ischemia in most cases. Their frequency increases with the duration of symptom and doesn't decrease. And they are associated with a higher risk of recurrent stroke. I told you this is about ×7. And I think this is finished, and I would like to thank you for your attention.